The phone goes dead in my hand 3 seconds after I say the words "I'm out." Not disconnected. Not dropped. Hung up on. By my own father. And that's when the first number appears. System, suppression field detected, 94 active. I don't know what that means yet. I just know my hands are shaking, and it isn't from the cold. 3 years. I gave them 3 years of my life, standing in a cell that smelled like bleach and regret, and the first thing my own father does when I walk free is hang up on me like I'm a wrong number. Here's the part that should tell you everything you need to know about this story. I wasn't even mad yet. I was still doing the thing you do when you love people too much, making excuses for them before they've even finished hurting you. That excuse lasted exactly as long as it took me to walk home. Quick version, because we don't have time for the slow one. I have a younger brother. Sean Tung. Golden child, top university, the kind of son parents brag about at dinner parties. 3 years ago, he was driving drunk. He hit someone. He panicked, and instead of doing the thing an actual man does, he called me. And I said yes. I said yes because he used to cry if I left the room too long when we were kids. I said yes because that's what older brothers do, apparently, in a family where love comes with a payment plan, and I was always the one footing the bill. Here's the part one never told anyone, not even the lawyer. That night, standing in the rain next to a crumpled bumper and a stranger bleeding on the asphalt, my brother didn't even ask me to do it. He just looked at me. Silent. Terrified. And I heard myself say the words before I'd even finished deciding. Go home. I'll handle it. Big mistake. Huge. I didn't know it yet, obviously. In that moment it felt like love. It felt like the thing older brothers are supposed to do, the thing I'd watched in every family drama since I was a kid: take the hit so the ones you love don't have to. Nobody tells you that kind of love has an expiration date on the other end. Nobody tells you the people you protect can quietly decide, somewhere around year 2, that protecting them was never a debt. It was just what you were for. I took the fall. Hit and run, on paper, my name. 3 years, cold floor, cold food, cold silence. You want to know what 3 years in a place like that actually does to a person? It's not the violence, though there was plenty. It's not even the boredom, though the boredom is its own special kind of torture. It's the silence. Nobody visited. Not once. Not on my birthday, not on the New Year, not on the day my grandmother died and I found out through a second-hand rumor 2 weeks late. I told myself there had to be a reason. Work schedules. Bad timing. Shame, maybe, the kind that keeps people away out of guilt rather than indifference. I was wrong about that too. We'll get there. I paid for the house we all lived in too. Full price. Every yuan traceable, every receipt saved, because if there's one thing prison teaches you, it's that people forget kindness the second it stops being convenient. I thought that house was mine. I thought that family was mine. I was wrong on both counts, and I was about to find out exactly how wrong on my own front step. I don't call a cab. I don't buy new clothes, even though mine still smell like prison laundry detergent, that specific industrial bleach stink that never fully leaves your skin. I just walk. Block after block. Something in my chest telling me go home now, louder with every step. And when I get there, I hear my sister-in-law's voice through the window before I even reach the gate. I'm not living under the same roof as an ex-con. Cool. Totally normal Tuesday. My mother's voice, softer, placating, somehow worse. I'm doing this for your own good. He paid for this house, after all. He paid for this house. Present tense. Like that fact should matter to the conversation they were having about throwing me out of it. I stood on that walkway with my hand raised to knock, frozen in the cold morning air, and something in me, quiet, mechanical, patient, started counting. System, hostile intent logged 1. I didn't understand that notification yet either. I just knew it felt right. I knocked anyway. The voices inside cut off like someone hit mute on the whole house. My mother opens the door. Her face runs through 3 expressions in under a second: shock, panic, and finally a badly built smile that wouldn't fool a child. Shaolin. Why are you back already? Your dad was just about to go get you. I looked at her. Really looked. And for the first time in my life, I didn't believe a single word out of her mouth. That should have been the strangest thing to happen to me that morning. It wasn't. The moment I step inside, my sister-in-law recoils like I'm something contagious, grabs a bottle of disinfectant off the shelf, and sprays me down laughing. Don't take it personally. Just getting rid of the bad luck. I said nothing. I turned toward the stairs, toward my old room, and made it exactly 2 steps before my father's hand closed on my arm like a vice. Don't even think about it. There's no room for you here. 3 years. I didn't die in there. And somehow, in the time it took me to walk from the prison gate to my own front door, there stopped being room for me in a house I bought with my own money. System, hostile intent logged 2. System, hostile intent logged 3. I didn't know it yet, but somewhere underneath 3 years of silence, something had been keeping score this whole time. And it was about to stop being quiet about it. My brother walks out of the bathroom right on cue, looks at me the way you look at a broken appliance, mild irritation, zero warmth, and says the sentence that ends whatever was left of my patience. Bro, there's just not enough space. We've got a lot of people in this house now. Something in my chest goes still. Cold. Like a lake freezing over in real time, and you can actually feel the surface locking shut. There was space before, I said quietly. I was only gone 3 years. And need I remind you, I paid for this house. In full. That's when he hits me. Open palm. Hard enough my ears ring. Hard enough that for 1 full second, the entire world goes white and silent. You think buying a house makes you untouchable? Did you come home to be family, or did you come home to collect a debt? My father, right on beat, backing up his son. We don't owe you anything. We don't owe you anything. 4 words. I let them sink all the way to the bottom of me, and I want you to understand something before we go any further into this story. I remembered a different version of these people. I remembered them on their knees, sobbing, begging me to take the fall so their favorite son's future wouldn't end before it started. I remembered every single promise they made about making it up to me. I never wanted repayment. I just wanted my family to still feel like family. Instead, I got a slap and an eviction notice from the people I bled for. And right there, cheek burning, something inside me finally clicked into place, like a lock turning after 3 years of being rusted shut. System, suppression field, conditions met. System, suppression removed. No explanation. No fanfare. Just those 3 words, sitting behind my eyes like they'd been waiting there the whole time. I had no idea what had just unlocked. I only knew that for the first time since I walked out of that prison gate, I felt completely, terrifyingly calm. Fine, I said. Starting today, I'm done. All of you. Don't you dare regret this later. I walked out without looking back. I don't remember most of that walk. I just remember cold air, a strange numbness spreading through my chest, and eventually a cheap hotel with nowhere else to go. Here's the part that makes this whole thing insane. That night, lying on a stiff hotel mattress, I finally let myself check the thing I'd been ignoring since the front gate. The number in my bank account. A gift from someone whose life I saved during a prison riot, a story for another time, the son of the richest man in the province. 100 million yuan. Sitting untouched. Waiting. And underneath it, for the first time visible, clear as day. Status, ex-convict? Extraction speed, 0 calculating. I stared at that bracketed question mark for a long time. I didn't know what I was becoming yet. I just knew the old version of me, the one who begged for scraps of affection from people who'd already decided I was disposable, was never walking back through that door again. I called a lawyer that night. Explained everything. The house, the down payment, the transfer papers, 3 years of meticulous documentation that I'd saved without even knowing why. If you can prove you were the actual buyer, he said, steady and reassuring, recovering the house is entirely possible. I hired him on the spot. Full authority. Here's the part that makes this whole thing insane, and I need you to actually sit with it for a second instead of just scrolling past. 3 years ago, I was the kind of person who apologized to furniture when I bumped into it. I let my little brother eat the last piece of everything at every family dinner since we were kids, because that's just what you do for someone you love. I gave away my own comfort so casually I never even noticed I was doing it. Somewhere in that cell, something in me stopped doing that. Not gradually either. It was more like a switch that had been rusted shut for 29 years finally getting enough pressure behind it to snap. I didn't understand the brackets yet. The system tags, the percentages, the status flips. I want to be honest with you, even now, looking back, I still don't fully know where they came from. Maybe it was just what happens when a person finally, completely, stops asking to be loved by people who've already made up their minds not to. Maybe calling it a system was just my brain's way of making the coldness bearable. Doesn't matter. What matters is what it did. It counted. It kept score when I couldn't bring myself to. And it didn't forget a single thing. I thought about the years of silence. About the slap still stinging on my cheek. And I made myself a promise, lying there in that cheap hotel bed with 100 million yuan and a lawyer on retainer. I was going to make every single one of them regret every word. The next morning I walk into the sales office of the city's most exclusive villa community. They're running a promotion. I buy 10 fully furnished villas. Paid in full. No negotiation. System, extraction speed, 340. I kept one for myself. Rented out the other 9. Within a month, the rental income alone dwarfed anything I could have earned in a lifetime at an honest 9-to-5. Money I didn't even have to think about anymore. A month after that, my father calls. Shangluan, have you lost your mind? You're actually suing us? Cold-hearted bastard. I could picture his face perfectly. Purple with rage, veins standing out on his forehead exactly like it used to when I was a teenager and made some minor mistake that suddenly justified an hour of screaming. I smiled, faint and humorless. You taught me everything I know, didn't you? I'm taking the house back. Not because I need it. Because I refuse to let a family of ungrateful leeches live inside something I built with my own 2 hands, out of my own money, while I was standing in a cell they never once visited. I hung up before he could scream any further. System, status flip detected. Target, father, respect fear partial. Less than a minute later, someone knocked on my door. And this is exactly where the story starts getting genuinely interesting. A woman stood there. Stunning, poised, clearly nervous underneath the composure. Hi, landlord. I'm your tenant from Villa 2. Su Wanwan. She's hosting a housewarming party. Her friends are, apparently, dying to meet the crazy rich landlord who bought 10 villas in one afternoon. She wants me to come. I've got 100 million yuan, a system I don't understand yet flashing brackets behind my eyes, and a family war that's only getting started, and somehow, this is the thing that catches me off guard. A woman pressing her palms together, tilting her head, asking instead of demanding. I've always been weak to that. Never to force. Never to threats. Quiet, genuine asking gets me every single time. Fine, I said. I'll come tonight. I had no idea that walking through that gate was about to collide 2 halves of my life at once, and one of them was going to publicly humiliate the other before the night was over. 7 o'clock. I'm almost at the door, still getting used to the strange sensation of clean clothes that hadn't been prison issued, when a voice stops me cold. Shangluan. You actually followed us all the way here? My brother. Xia Lin beside him. Both frozen mid-step, like they'd seen a ghost. Xia Lin's lip curls the second she spots Wanwan behind me. Wanwan, this is my husband's ex-con brother. Does nothing all day except scheme how to steal our house. Every head in earshot turns toward me at once. Contempt, curiosity, cruel amusement, crashing down like a wave. System, hostile intent, public, logged. Something cold and sharp settles in my chest. I look at my sister-in-law the way you'd look at someone embarrassing themselves in public, and I let my voice cut clean. First, zero interest in following either of you anywhere. Second, I went to prison to take the fall for your husband. Third, you call me a filthy ex-con while squatting in a house I paid for and refuse to leave. So tell me, who exactly is the shameless one here? The crowd's expressions towards Xia Lin shift instantly. Disbelief ripples through the courtyard like a current finding a new path. She recovers fast, designer confidence dies hard. Cut the crap. That house belongs to Sheng Tang. The lawyer's letter is already at your hotel. I hope you're this stubborn in court. My brother tries the softer angle, guilt flickering weakly across his face, the kind of guilt that only shows up when it's useful. Bro. I know you just got out and have nowhere to stay. But that room, we're saving it for the baby. We're family. Do you really have to make this ugly? When you threw me out of my own house, I said, family wasn't mentioned then. When your wife just insulted me in front of a room full of strangers, family wasn't mentioned then either. Xia Lin, undeterred, straightens with fresh arrogance. This villa belongs to some rich landlord, Shangluan. You don't want to find out what happens when he arrives. Laughter ripples through the crowd. Every single one of them ready to believe the worst about me without a shred of evidence. That's the part that stings, honestly, not the insult itself, but how easy it is for a room full of strangers to pick a villain in under 30 seconds. Then Su Wanwan steps forward. Right in front of me. Chin high, voice sharp. Xia Lin. There's no misunderstanding here. Mr. Sheng is my guest. You have no right to slander him. Leave. Now. Xia Lin shoves her aside. Who do you think you are to tell us to leave? You're not the landlord. No, Wanwan says, voice ringing clear across the sudden silence. He is. System, status flip, target, public perception, contempt, shock. I need you to actually picture this crowd for a second, because the reaction is the entire reason this moment works. 40, maybe 50 people. Champagne glasses frozen halfway to mouths. A live band that had been playing something upbeat 2 seconds earlier, now visibly unsure whether to keep going or let the silence do its work. Xia Lin had walked into this party expecting an easy win. A room full of strangers who already believed whatever she told them, because why would anyone question a story that confirms exactly what they wanted to believe about an ex-convict in the first place? That's the oldest trick in the book, and it works constantly, precisely because most people would rather feel right than actually be right. She didn't account for one variable. She assumed the landlord was some absent name on a lease agreement, someone she'd never have to look in the eye. She had absolutely no idea the crazy rich landlord who bought 10 villas in one afternoon was standing 4 feet away from her, listening to every word. The words land like a hammer strike. The laughter dies instantly. Every eye in the courtyard snaps toward me, disbelief cracking wide open across every face, especially my brother's, which has gone the color of old paper. Xia Lin's mocking smile freezes halfway, then shatters completely. Wanwan, are you joking? He's a broke loser. I said nothing. I let the silence do the talking. Let the weight of what she just learned settle over her like a slow, crushing tide. Great. Just great. That's the phrase that was about to become my entire personality for the next 6 months. That night, they didn't go home to reflect. They went home to fester. By dawn, the online world had a new headline waiting for me. Xia Lin sits curled on the bed, jealousy twisting her features as she scrolls Wanwan's social media. Why does he get to live in a villa? That money has to be dirty. Babe, Sheng Teng mutters, staring at his phone, he's already hired a lawyer. I don't think we're keeping that apartment. If I can't have it, she snaps, he's not getting to enjoy his precious reputation either. Let's see how comfortable he is in that villa once the whole internet hates him. Within hours, a post goes viral. In search of the lost conscience, ex-con older brother tries to drive his whole family to ruin. According to her, I'm a man who came home from prison to seize his elderly parents' retirement house and threaten his younger brother's family with violence. The comments are vicious. Strangers who know nothing about me calling for my public shaming, digging through whatever scraps they can find, some threatening to show up at my door. My phone buzzes constantly with blocked numbers. Every call dissolves into cursing before I can get a word in. Here's the thing nobody in that comments section understood. Compared to 3 years behind bars, internet strangers screaming into a void is nothing. It's noise. It's background static to a man who's already survived the worst version of loneliness a person can survive. System, hostile intent, public, 47 and climbing. Wanwan bursts into my study, tablet in hand, face pale. Brother Sheng, look, they're live streaming right now, playing the victims. People are trying to dox your exact address. Expected, I said, not looking up from the documents in front of me. They don't have any other skills besides cheap tricks. On the screen, Xia Lin sobs theatrically for the camera while Sheng Teng sits beside her, head bowed, the picture of a wrongfully persecuted family. I called my lawyer instead of reacting. Have you archived everything, the defamatory posts, the accounts spreading them? Already notarized, Mr. Sheng. The moment you give the word, they'll be facing both civil compensation and criminal liability. I hung up and looked out the window at the still, glassy lake beyond the villa grounds. This storm was nothing but the overture. The real reckoning hadn't even started. Let me tell you what patience actually looks like from the inside, because the internet loves to romanticize the calm villain waiting for his moment archetype without ever explaining how genuinely uncomfortable it is to live through. Every hour I didn't respond, my silence got reinterpreted as guilt by people who'd never met me. Every comment section filled up a little more. Somewhere, a stranger was screenshotting my face from an old university photo and drawing devil horns on it in an editing app, and I knew that, and I sat with that knowledge anyway, because I understood something they didn't. The truth doesn't need volume. It just needs time, and a stack of documents that don't lie the way people do. The chaos eventually spills out of the internet and into the real world. My parents show up at the villa's front gate, dragging a battered loudspeaker, ready to make a scene for as long as it takes. Shang Luan. Get out here right now, you ungrateful son. You live in this mansion and you make your own father rent a shack. My mother throws herself to the pavement, wailing for the gathering crowd of curious neighbors. Everyone, look. My son came back from prison cold as ice, doesn't even recognize his own mother. I step out onto the balcony and look down at the spectacle. Strangely, I feel calm. Almost relieved, the way you feel when a wound you've been dreading finally gets lanced. Mom. Dad. I gave you a chance. I bought that apartment outright, I never said you couldn't live there. You were the ones who tried to throw me out first. It's under my name. It's mine. If you want a house, buy your own. And you owe your younger brother nothing more than what you've already taken from me. Security escorts them off the property. My father's curses trail behind him the whole way. That evening, Wan brings me a steaming bowl of noodles, worry etched across her face like she thinks the comments might actually break me. Brother Shang. Eat something. Don't let those comments get to you. The truth always comes out eventually. I'm not that fragile, I said. Prison was worse than this. They might come back tomorrow, she says. Are you really not releasing the evidence yet? Let them make all the noise they want, I said. The louder they scream now, the easier it'll be to charge them with defamation and disorderly conduct later. I'm not in a rush. I'm waiting for the moment where the lie collapses completely, with nowhere left to hide. System, extraction speed 890. I didn't know it yet, but that number was about to jump off a cliff. The next morning, Xiaolin arrives with her parents and a small army of influencers, cameras rolling, blocking the villa's entrance entirely. My mother sits at the gate, slapping her thighs, wailing for the growing crowd. Everyone, judge for yourselves. My son came home from prison a monster. Reporters shove microphones toward her like sharks smelling blood. I push the door open and step outside. The sunlight is sharp against my eyes. The crowd erupts the second they see me. There he is. Show us the property deed, coward. Heartless bastard. I let the noise wash over me until it settles, then I speak. Calm. Clear. I will show you the deed. Not right now. But I'd like every reporter here to remember this moment as witnesses for when the truth comes out. So you can see, clearly, who's actually been lying. The crowd goes quiet. I reach into my jacket and pull out a neat stack of photocopies. Bank transfers. Receipts. Property records. All 3 years old. All still perfectly intact. I hand them to the reporter closest to me. His face shifts from smug anticipation to visible shock the moment he reads the numbers. I paid the full price of this house in 3 installments, 3 years ago. 4.2 million yuan. Every transfer traceable directly to my personal account. My mother's wailing cuts off mid-breath. So what? Xiaolin snaps, though her voice has lost its earlier confidence. The deed has mom and dad's names on it. That's a gift. You can't take a gift back. My lawyer steps forward. And this is the part where the street finally goes silent. System, status flip, target, Xiaolin, confidence panic. I want to slow down on this moment, actually, because it's the exact hinge point of this entire story, and I don't think it gets enough credit for what it actually was. For 3 years, I was the family secret nobody brought up at parties. The son who made a mistake. The name people lowered their voices to say. I carried that shame around like it was mine to carry, because that's what they taught me to do quietly, patiently, one guiltless sentence at a time, until I genuinely believed I owed them my silence in exchange for a roof that was never theirs to begin with. Standing on that street with a stack of photocopies in my hand, watching an entire crowd's face rearrange itself in real time, I understood something I probably should have understood 3 years earlier. Shame only works on people who still believe they did something wrong. I didn't do anything wrong. I loved the wrong people, at the wrong volume, for far too long. That's not a crime. That's just a lesson, and I was done paying tuition for it. I didn't wait to hear the rest of the legal breakdown. I turned and walked back inside. I already knew how it ended. 3 days later, the civil case over the house gets its first hearing. I want to walk you through this part slowly, because it's the moment the paper trail I'd been quietly stockpiling for 3 years finally got to do its job in front of someone with the power to actually rule on it. My parents show up in matching outfits, the kind of coordinated humility that only ever shows up for court dates and funerals. Sheng Tang sits beside them, tight too tight, refusing to make eye contact with anyone including his own lawyer. Their argument, boiled down, the deed lists my parents' names. A gift, freely given, irrevocable. Whatever money I contributed was simply a son fulfilling his filial duty, and filial duty doesn't come with strings attached. My lawyer stands. Doesn't raise his voice. Doesn't need to. Your Honor, we have bank transfer records spanning 3 installments, notarized at the time of each transfer, all originating from my client's personal account, matched precisely to the purchase agreement's payment schedule. We also have text message records from the defendant's own mother, dated 11 days before the first transfer, explicitly requesting my client buy the house so we don't have to deal with a mortgage. This was never a gift. It was a purchase executed through my client, using my client's money, for reasons that had nothing to do with generosity. You could hear a pin drop in that courtroom. My mother's face did the thing it always does when she's caught, a kind of controlled collapse, shoulders in, chin down, waiting to see if crying would still work on this particular audience. It didn't. Judges, it turns out, are a much harder crowd than a family dinner table. The judge calls a recess to review the documentation. My father leans over to me in the hallway outside, voice low so the reporters clustered by the doors can't catch it. You'd really do this? Drag your own mother through a courtroom over a house? You did it first, I said. You just used a front door instead of a filing cabinet. System, extraction speed, 1650. That number climbed every single time someone in that family opened their mouth expecting the old rules to still apply. They didn't understand yet that the rules had changed the moment my father hung up that phone call. Some debts get forgiven. This one was just getting collected. That afternoon, I opened a message from my brother. Voice notes, one after another, dripping with panic. Bro, please, I'm begging you, put those bank records away. If the company finds out I stole this house from you, my whole career is finished. I didn't reply. Here's something I learned about people like my brother, and I want you to sit with this one for a second, because it applies to more than just him. People like him only remember you exist when their own comfort is under threat. Not before. Never before. Outside my window, Xia Lin's phone buzzes. Her face goes white as she reads whatever message just landed. I knew immediately the second batch of legal warnings had arrived. The person orchestrating this entire smear campaign was finally starting to feel the cold, mechanical weight of consequence. Just as she opens her mouth for another round of theatrics, a black Rolls-Royce eases to a stop at the edge of the crowd, consecutive number license plate catching the light. Every camera swings toward it. Even the most aggressive influencers lower their gimbals. The door opens. A young man in an impeccably tailored suit steps out, ignoring the crowd entirely, walking straight toward me. He pulls me into a hug in front of everyone. Brother Shang. I heard you've had some trouble since getting out. Is there anything I can do? Young Master Lin, I said. It's just a small family matter. You didn't need to come. Whispers ripple through the crowd immediately. Young Master Lin? Of the Lin Group? How does an ex-con know him? An ex-con? Lin Cheng's voice rings out, sharp and clear. Mr. Shang went to prison to protect someone. To take the blame for cowards too afraid to face their own consequences. The case files from that accident 3 years ago, my lawyers are already retrieving them. The truth will surface very soon. At the word truth, my brother's knees buckle. He sinks straight down onto the pavement. System, status flip, target, Shang Tun, entitlement terror. The thing he'd feared his entire life had finally arrived at his doorstep. I told you at the start of this that Lin Cheng owed me his life from a prison riot, and that it was a story for another time. This is another time. 8 months into my sentence, a fight broke out in the mess hall over something so stupid I don't even remember what started it anymore. Within 90 seconds it wasn't a fight, it was a riot. Guards pulled back behind the gate, inmates swinging trays and fists and anything that wasn't bolted down, and in the middle of it, on the floor, a skinny kid getting stomped by 3 men twice his size. Nobody knew who he was yet. I just knew nobody else was moving to help him, and something in me, the same something that would later say go home, I'll handle it, moved before I finished thinking about it. I got him out. Took a chair leg across the ribs doing it, cracked 2 of them, spent a week in the infirmary breathing like there was broken glass in my lungs. Small price, I thought, for a kid's life. Turned out that kid was Lin Chang, son of the richest man in the province, doing a short stint on a charge his family's lawyers eventually got thrown out entirely, but not before I'd already pulled him off that floor with no idea who he was or what it would ever mean. He never forgot it. I never expected him to remember it at all. 100 million yuan, wired to an account I hadn't even checked in months, no note attached except a single line. A debt like this doesn't get repaid in money. Consider this a deposit. I want you to sit with the contrast here for a second, because it's the whole point of this story. I bled for my own blood, my actual brother, and got a slap and an eviction notice for it. I bled for a stranger on a mess hall floor, expecting nothing, and it came back 100 million yuan deep and, eventually, an entire legal team standing between me and a family that wanted me erased. Blood was never the thing that mattered. It never is. What matters is whether the debt gets remembered by the person who owes it. Only one side of my life ever remembered. By dawn, the reporters had abandoned their original angle entirely. No one cared anymore about why I kicked out my parents. Every camera, every question, was now aimed squarely at the 3-year-old accident and the truth buried beneath it. Inside the villa, Lin Chang's legal team takes over the entire situation, working in calm, coordinated silence. Wan moves between them serving tea, her earlier anxiety replaced by something like quiet admiration. "You were so stupid back then," she says softly, setting a cup down beside me. "Sacrificing everything for family like that. I used to think family meant everything too. Now I understand a lot more." My phone rings. My father's name on the screen. No screaming this time. No arrogance. Just a trembling, tearful voice. "Xiao Lin. Please. Tell young Master Lin to stop. If Shengtang gets arrested, this family is finished. He's your own blood. You can't just watch him get destroyed." "Dad," I said, voice perfectly even. "I served 3 years in prison for him. We're even now. Whatever road is ahead of him, he walks it alone." I hung up and blocked the number. System, extraction speed 2140. That number kept climbing every day the truth got closer to the surface. I still didn't fully understand what was powering it. I just knew it was mine now, and nothing they said could touch it anymore. When the police eventually took my brother in for questioning, my parents arrived at my door like 2 hollowed-out shells of the people they used to be. No reporters. No loudspeaker. Just quiet, trembling desperation. "Xiao Lin," my father whispers, voice cracking, "I'm begging you. One word to young Master Lin, and everything gets wiped clean. Your brother has a child. He can't go to prison." I looked at the new lines carved into his forehead and felt absolutely nothing. My mother drops to her knees on the study floor, sobbing. "Mom will give you anything. Just spare your brother. We don't want the apartment anymore. We'll farm. Just please." "The apartment was always mine," I said quietly. "As for Sheng Tun, the law will give him whatever ruling he deserves. Not me." Meanwhile, Xiao Lin abandons all pretense entirely. Knowing the game is up, she starts stripping the villa of anything valuable before the courts can seize it. Sofa slashed open. Light fixtures torn from the ceiling. Paintings ripped off the walls. "I don't care what it sells for," she snaps at a hired mover. "Just get whatever you can. And take the fridge too." Lawyer Zhang arrives with court officials mid-tantrum, scissors still in her hand. "Ms. Xia. Per the court's preservation order, all fixtures and renovations fall under protected property. What you're doing constitutes intentional property damage." She lunges at them, screaming. "This is my husband's house. I'd rather destroy it than let that ex-con have a single brick." Staff restrain her. She collapses onto the dusty floor amid the wreckage, and lets out a scream of pure, desperate fury. I watched from the shade below, feeling something unexpected settle over me. Relief. Some things have to be completely broken before something new can begin. System, status flip, target, Xiao Lin, defiance 0. The court's seal was affixed. She was taken in on suspicion of property damage. Even out on bail, Xiao Lin refused to stop. She tracked down Wan through mutual contacts, assuming she was nothing more than a hired assistant. Someone who could be bought. They meet at a quiet cafe. Xiao Lin slides a bank card across the table, voice dropped low. "Wan. I'm begging you. Just get me the original copy of the house purchase contract. This card has 500,000 yuan on it. All yours." Wan takes a slow sip of her coffee, sets the cup down with a soft, deliberate click, and looks at her the way you'd look at a poorly performing street act. "Ms. Xia. You've made a mistake. I'm not his employee. I'm his business partner. And everything you just said, trying to bribe me into destroying evidence? I recorded all of it. Xiao Lin's face drains of color. I stepped through the door at that exact moment, watching her composure shatter completely. Your last chance, I said, and you burned it yourself. Lawyer Zhang's waiting downstairs. Go explain the bribery and evidence tampering to the judge. System, extraction speed, 4,200. There's the number. The one that made even me pause for a second and stare at it. 4,200%. I didn't ask for that spike. It just happened, the moment the last of her leverage evaporated in real time. The battle between greed and betrayal had already been decided. What remained now was simply the reckoning catching up. After Xiao Lin was taken away, my father, a man who'd been in reasonably good health his whole life, suddenly collapses onto a hospital bed with a cold compress pressed to his forehead, muttering my brother's name over and over like a broken record. I recognized the move immediately. Their last card. Guilt, dressed up as illness, meant to force me into dropping everything. When I pushed open the door to his hospital room, my mother sat hunched at his bedside. For once, she doesn't leap up screaming the moment she sees me. Instead, her fingers shake as she grabs the hem of my sleeve. Xiao Lin. Your father's heart can't take another shock. The doctor said no more stress. For the sake of what's left of this family, let your brother and Xiao Lin go. Please. I gently pull my sleeve free. Mom. When I went to prison 3 years ago, my heart broke too. Who let me off, for the sake of family, back then? My father erupts into a fit of violent coughing, one trembling finger raised in my direction. You ungrateful brat. Are you trying to put me in the ground? The doctor said it's high blood pressure, Dad. Nothing life-threatening. This performance might work on reporters. It doesn't work on me anymore. I turned and walked out. My mother's wails chased me down the hallway. I didn't look back once. System, suppression field, 0. That was the notification that finally made sense to me, sitting on the terrace that evening. The suppression was never some outside force. It was every excuse I'd ever made for people who never once made excuses for me. And it was gone now. Completely. Manhwa brings out 2 cups of fresh coffee that evening, setting them down with the easy familiarity of someone who'd been doing it for years, not weeks. Brother Shang, she says. Young Master Lin's team finished compiling the full evidence on the accident. It's confirmed Sheng Tang paid someone to take the blame that night. The official verdict should be announced soon. Let him face what he was always supposed to face, I said. 3 years overdue. Inside the detention center, my brother was already learning exactly how cruel life could be without his family's money to soften every blow. Stripped of the parents who'd always shielded him and the wife who used to posture on his behalf, his spoiled, entitled nature made him an easy target. Manhwa studies me with a softer, more searching expression than usual. When this is all over, what happens next? Are you just going to keep collecting rent on 10 villas for the rest of your life? I looked out toward the horizon, a faint smile tugging at my mouth. This is only the beginning. I lost 3 blank years. I intend to fill them back in with something that actually matters. Will you keep helping me do that? She didn't answer with words. Just a smile and a nod, her eyes bright with something I hadn't let myself hope for in a very long time. Once Lin Cheng's evidence was formally entered into the case file, the truth of that 3-year-old accident finally came out into the open. My brother was convicted of hit and run and inciting another person to take the blame in his place. 4 years, fixed term. He collapsed the moment the verdict was read. He'd always assumed our parents would shield him forever. That Xiao Lin's dramatics would somehow save him. That he could hide in my shadow indefinitely. He'd forgotten that even shadows have limits. I sat in the gallery for that verdict, not because I needed to see it happen, but because the version of me who spent 3 years in a cell wanted proof, with his own eyes, that the system could occasionally work the right direction. It's a strange thing, watching someone's entire life narrow down to a single sentence read out by a stranger in a robe. There's no drama to it in real life the way there is in the shows. No swelling music. Just a judge reading numbers off a page, and a room full of people absorbing the weight of those numbers at wildly different speeds. My brother absorbed his instantly. I watched the exact second it landed, his shoulders dropping, the color leaving his face in one continuous wave, like watching a light switch flip in slow motion. My father sat in the public gallery, sobbing openly, pounding his own chest. My son, my boy who graduated from a top university, his whole life, ruined. I stood and looked at him, calm, unmoved. Dad. When I served 3 years for him, you never once called that cruel. Now he's finally facing the consequences of his own actions, and suddenly you can't bear it. My mother wailed something about being cursed, about me being the family's bad omen. I didn't respond. I walked out of the courtroom into cold air that felt more like freedom than anything I'd breathed in years. Mr. Shang, lawyer Zhang said, catching up beside me. Xiao Lin's charges stack even higher than his. Her sentence likely won't be shorter. It's closed, I said. But this is just the start of everything after. Status, ex-convict? Still unresolved. Still waiting on something I hadn't unlocked yet. I didn't know then that the answer wasn't a title. It was a person, wrapped in a hospital blanket, who hadn't been born yet. I called Lin Cheng that afternoon. Time to move forward. A real investment plan. A real business, built on my own terms this time. I sold 5 of the villas as startup capital. At the cocktail party marking my formal entry into the business world, I wore a custom suit and carried myself with a calm I hadn't felt since before the accident that started all of this. Wan walked beside me in an elegant gown, effortlessly working the room. That's the president of the Chamber of Commerce, she murmured. He's very interested in your Old Town renovation proposal. Before we could cross the room, a man steps directly into our path. Mr. Zhao, a well-known real estate figure in this city, swirls his wine glass with a smug, condescending smile. Mr. Shang. You've gotten quite famous lately. I hear you're locked in quite the war with your own family. Business runs on harmony, you know. Who would dare partner with a man who sues his own parents? You're well informed, Mr. Zhao, I said evenly. But I run my business on rules and boundaries. People without any don't deserve a seat at my table. His expression curdles. Around us, the room's attention sharpens, quietly recalibrating its assessment of me. 3 days later, his invitation arrives anyway. I debate it for a long while before deciding to go. His office is all leather furniture and forced warmth. He rolls 2 jade balls between his fingers, smiling like a man who thinks he already holds all the leverage. So, Mr. Shang. What's your decision? The online harassment hasn't fully died down, has it? Hand over that plot of land, and I'll make sure every reporter disappears by tomorrow. You get to keep being the glorious success story. I set my teacup down, unhurried. Behind me, Wan places a thick folder on the marble table with a dull, deliberate thud. You seem to have forgotten something, Mr. Zhao. Where I spent the last 3 years. The one thing prison teaches you better than anything else: never let anyone hold something over you. Wan opens the folder. Forced demolitions. Tax evasion. Multiple documented bribery cases, compiled overnight through the Lin family's intelligence network. If this reaches the economic investigation team, I said, how long do you think your company survives? The weekend? The smugness drains from his face in real time. Sweat beads along his hairline as his jade balls click together, forgotten in his hand. We're both businessmen, Mr. Shang. No need to burn bridges. I stood, straightening my jacket, a faint, satisfied smile tugging at my mouth. The fish dies. My net stays intact. I don't want to be your enemy, Mr. Zhao. But I won't hesitate to see you in court if you force my hand. I walked out without a backward glance. System, extraction speed, 5,800. Somewhere behind that number, a version of me who spent 3 years being told to shrink was quietly, permanently, done shrinking. Word about Mr. Zhao got around fast, the way these things do in rooms full of people whose entire personality is knowing things before other people do. Within a week, 2 other developers who'd been quietly stalling on deals with me suddenly found reasons to move faster. Nobody said Mr. Zhao's name out loud. Nobody had to. That's how reputation actually works in rooms like that, not through announcements, but through the sudden, unexplained willingness of everyone around you to stop testing your patience. Wan noticed it before I did, actually. She came home from a meeting one afternoon, kicked off her heels by the door, and said something that stuck with me longer than I expected it to. You know what's strange? Nobody in that boardroom today mentioned the lawsuit. Or the prison thing. 6 months ago, that's all anyone wanted to whisper about behind your back. Today it just didn't come up. Not once. People only whisper about weakness, I told her. The second you stop looking like prey, the story stops being interesting. She smiled at that, the particular smile she saves for the moments she's quietly proud of something I said, and didn't push the conversation further. She understood, I think, that this, the boardrooms, the reputation, the villas, was never actually the point for me. It was just the proof. The receipts, in a different currency, that the version of me who used to apologize to furniture wasn't walking back through any door, ever again. Half a year later, Xiao Lin gave birth to a baby boy in the correctional hospital. With both parents serving time, her family treated the infant like an unwanted burden, passing him around until, eventually, he ended up in my study, wrapped in a thin hospital blanket. I looked down at the small, fragile life in the cradle, feelings tangled in my chest. What's his name? Xiao Lin never gave him one, Wanwan said quietly. The birth certificate is blank. Brother Shang, are you sure about this? Adopting him means the shadow of those two people follows you forever. I'm worried. I reached down. His tiny hand closed around my finger with surprising strength. He doesn't get a choice in any of this. But I do. Status update, ex-convict father. That's the notification that finally landed right. Not a title I extracted from anyone else's ruin. One I built, on purpose, out of the wreckage. I want to be honest about the hesitation, too, because a clean version of this story would skip straight to the warm part, and that wouldn't be true to how it actually happened. I stood over that cradle for a long time before I said yes out loud. This was Xiao Lin's blood. Sheng Tang's blood. The two people who'd spent the better part of a year trying to publicly destroy me. Every rational argument in my head told me to let the state figure out what to do with the child, to keep my new life clean and untangled from theirs. Then he wrapped his whole fist around one of my fingers, and every rational argument lost, instantly, without a fight. Wanwan watched me make that decision without saying a word, which I think was its own kind of answer. She didn't need to convince me. She just waited to see whether the man she'd chosen to stand beside was actually who she thought he was. I named him Shang Nian to remember the family bond one lost, and to make sure I never repeated the mistakes that broke it. I completed the adoption despite the outside criticism, slowed my business expansion to make room for him, and Wanwan turned down several high-paying opportunities to become the gentlest presence in his life. 3 years passed in what felt like a single breath. The ginkgo tree in the yard turned gold, then green, then gold again. Nyener grew from a screaming newborn into a small boy who trotted behind me on stubby legs, schoolbag bouncing, yelling "Daddy!" at the top of his lungs. "Daddy! Aunt Wanwan's taking me to the zoo. Hurry up!" I picked him up, poked his nose gently, and smiled in a way that felt entirely unfamiliar 3 years ago. "Okay. Daddy and Aunt Wanwan will take you." I want to pause here for a second, because this is the part of the story people always skip past when they tell it, and it's actually the part that matters most. Everything before this, the villas, the lawsuits, the reporters, the courtroom, that was all just clearing wreckage. This, right here, a kid with a school bag yelling for pandas at 7 in the morning, was the actual reconstruction. Nobody claps for this part. There's no viral post about a father learning how to braid his son's hair badly for the first day of school, or standing outside a classroom door for 20 minutes longer than necessary just to make sure the kid actually made a friend. But this was the thing I was rebuilding this entire time. Not a business. Not a reputation. This. Nyener had my brother's eyes, which used to bother me more than I ever admitted out loud. Some mornings, watching him tear into breakfast with both elbows on the table, I'd catch a flash of Sheng Tang at that same age, before the entitlement, before the cruelty, back when he was just a kid who cried if I left the room too long. It was a strange kind of grief, watching a face I used to love wearing an expression that had never once belonged to the man who gave it to him. Wanwan noticed it too, eventually. She never said anything about it directly. She just started making sure I was the one who tucked him in on the nights it seemed to hit hardest. System, status flip, target, self, vengeance, purpose. That one caught me off guard the first time it appeared. I'd gotten so used to the notifications tracking other people's downfall that I forgot the system had been quietly tracking mine too, this whole time. Turns out collecting what you're owed and actually healing are two completely different processes, running on two completely different clocks. The first one took about a year. The second one is still going, honestly, even now. The calm wasn't unbroken, though. My parents still showed up every few months, always with some financial emergency attached to my brother or Xiao Lin's name. My father pounds on the gate one afternoon, voice ragged but no less venomous. "Shang Luan. So generous raising that ungrateful bastard's kid, and you can't even visit your own brother rotting in prison. Do you even have a heart?" I stood on the balcony above, looking down at the man I used to respect more than anyone in the world. "The pension I give you is more than enough. Sheng Tang is paying for the crime he committed. No one can take that punishment for him. Not even me." I closed the window, sealing his curses outside. Nyener giggled in my arms, blissfully unaware of any of it. my only real comfort through these years. Inside, my brother huddled in a corner, holding a dented metal tray, hands blistered from labor his soft upbringing never prepared him for. An older inmate poured leftover scraps onto his tray with a sneer. Well, well. The genius who let his own brother take the fall for him. Still thinking about food before you've even finished sweeping? He'd tried dropping my name once, hoping it might buy him protection. My brother is Shang Luan. He's rich. If you take care of me. The slap came before he finished the sentence. Your brother is Shang Luan, the man spat. The benefactor who saved the richest man's son. A worm like you, who screwed over the person who saved you. You don't get to say his name. Kneel there the rest of the day. He collapsed into the dirty water pooling on the floor, eyes shut, finally tasting a fraction of the helplessness I felt 3 years ago. The difference was simple. I endured that to protect the people I loved. He was only paying for what he'd done to me. I heard about the kneeling detail from a guard my lawyer stays in contact with, someone who used to work the block I served on and still owes me a favor from a very different lifetime. He told it to me like gossip, half amused, not realizing he was describing my own brother. I didn't feel joy hearing it. I want to be honest about that, because it would make for a cleaner story if I did, and this genre usually wants the villain's suffering to feel like dessert. It didn't. It felt like weather. Something happening very far away, to someone I used to know, governed by rules I had absolutely nothing to do with anymore. He built that storm himself, one lie, one shortcut, one blame shift at a time, going all the way back to a rainy night 3 years ago when he looked at me instead of at the person bleeding on the pavement. Consequences aren't cruelty. They're just math, finally getting solved. Word of his suffering eventually reached my parents. Rather than reflect on anything, they decided it was somehow my fault for not using my influence to protect him. My father shows up again, clothes unwashed, voice hoarse with fury. Get lost, look how your own brother's living. Ribs broken by other inmates while you live like a king out here. That's the path he chose, I said. When I was living through hell 3 years ago, didn't you tell me the elder brother should just endure it, like a father would? He didn't have an answer for that. He never did, honestly, whenever I fed his own logic back to him with the names swapped. It's a strange kind of power, being handed someone's own rulebook and simply applying it evenly for once. He always assumed the rules only ran in one direction. My mother darts out from behind the hedge, ready to throw herself to the ground for another performance. I don't give her the chance. I signal the guards before she can even start. Everyone, look! Billionaire Shang Luan is going to be the death of his own parents. Cares for a stranger's bastard but ignores his own brother. I look at them, the last flicker of sympathy in me finally extinguished. That bastard is Shang Tang and Xia Lin's biological son. Keep this up, and I'll have my lawyer visit the prison personally to tell Shang Tang exactly how his parents treated his only child. My mother's voice dies mid-sentence. She stares at me, hollow, uncomprehending. They truly had no idea. All of them froze on the spot. System, suppression field, permanently disabled. I turned and walked back inside without another word. I would never let them near Nyener. Not after everything. Wanwan stood in the entryway, Nyener already asleep in her arms, warm light pooling around them both. That was the family worth protecting. In the detention hospital, the stress of confinement and interrogation had ravaged Xia Lin's health. The woman who once cared only for gold jewelry and designer bags now lay hollow-cheeked on a hospital bed, hair dry and brittle, too weak most days to lift a cup of water on her own. Where's my son? She rasps one afternoon. Where did my mother send him? The nurse changing her floor doesn't answer. She had no idea my money-hungry mother had discarded the child like an inconvenience. No idea that the brother she once mocked as a filthy ex-con was now the only person keeping her son fed and safe. A tear slides down her hollow cheek. Shang Luan. Are you enjoying this? Watching me end up like this? Her regret, if it could even be called that, wasn't for the people she'd hurt. It was for the luxury she'd lost. That twisted mindset only made her condition worse, and the doctors eventually confirmed it would likely follow her the rest of her life, however much of it remained. Once my parents learned I'd adopted Nyener, something shifted in them. They finally understood there was no more leaning on Shang Tang or Xia Lin. If they burned the last bridge to me, they'd have nothing left at all. So when news came of Xia Lin's worsening illness, they didn't dare bring reporters this time. They came humble instead. My father hunched at the edge of the couch, rubbing his palms nervously against his thighs. My mother wiped at her eyes, glancing at me every few seconds like a child checking if she'd been forgiven yet. Shaolin. We know we were foolish before. We hurt you. Now your brother's locked away and Xiaolin's sick in the hospital. You're really all we have left. That's right, my mother added. I regret it every single day, how badly we treated you. Xiaolin's treatment is expensive. For Nyenner's sake, could you help her? I set down the report I'd been reading and looked at them, unmoved. This sudden, convenient humility gave me no satisfaction. If anything, it felt more insulting than their earlier cruelty. If I were still the penniless ex-con who just walked out of prison, I asked, would either of you be speaking to me like this? My father's cheek twitches, a flash of shame crossing his face before he forces another smile. How could you think that? You're our son. Of course we want the whole family to get along. If Xiaolin's condition can't be treated, how will we ever explain it to Nyenner when he's older? Wanwan comes downstairs at that moment, Nyenner in her arms. He instantly shrinks back against her the moment he sees my parents, small instincts already sensing something wrong. Brother Shang, it's nap time, she says gently, then turns toward my parents with quiet authority. As for Xiaolin's medical expenses, the lawyer says if you go through proper legal channels, you'll only need to cover a small fraction of the cost. At the word legal, my mother's face goes pale, though she doesn't dare raise her voice. She simply looks at me, pleading silently, her eyes doing calculated math even now. Don't listen to the lawyer, Shaolin. He's an outsider. We're your real family. Just think of it as a good deed. Help her. Please. Watching them lower themselves just to survive, the last warm ember of feeling I had for them finally went out completely. They hadn't become better people. They'd simply become weaker ones. Here's the part one keep coming back to, even now, whenever I try to explain this stretch of my life to someone who wasn't there for it. There's a very specific kind of grief that comes from watching your parents beg, not because you feel sorry for them, but because some small, stubborn, 12-year-old part of you had spent your entire life wanting exactly this. Their attention. Their humility. Proof that you mattered enough to them to bend. And when it finally arrives, it arrives so late, and so obviously self-interested, that it doesn't heal a single thing. It just confirms what you already knew. The version of them that would have bent for love alone never existed. This version only bends under pressure, and the second the pressure lifts, they'll go right back to believing they were right the whole time. I gave my mother enough for Xiaolin's treatment. Not out of love. Out of the same instinct that made me document every bank transfer 3 years ago, a habit of doing the correct thing regardless of whether the people receiving it deserved it. Call it decency on autopilot. Call it the last stubborn scrap of the person I used to be before the suppression field lifted. She thanked me like I'd handed her the world. I already knew it wouldn't buy me anything real. It never had. Not long after, word came that Xiaolin's chronic illness, worsened by years of psychological deterioration, had finally taken her. She passed away alone, on a freezing night, in the prison hospital. She never saw her son again. She never got to wait for Shang Teng's release either. System, extraction complete. Target, Xiaolin. No triumph in that notification. Just a closed file. That's how these things end, most of the time. Not with a bang. With a quiet line closing itself out. I didn't attend the funeral. Her parents didn't invite me, and honestly, I wouldn't have gone even if they had. Wanwan asked me once, gently, whether I felt guilty about that. I told her the truth. I felt nothing, and the nothing itself was the thing that used to scare me, back when I still believed a good person was supposed to feel something at every ending, regardless of who the ending belonged to. I don't believe that anymore. Some doors close on their own. You don't have to attend the ceremony to respect that they're shut. What I did do, quietly, without telling anyone, was set aside a portion of Nyenner's future for the version of his mother he'd never get the chance to actually know. Not out of forgiveness. Out of the same stubborn decency that made me save every bank receipt 3 years ago, the same instinct that keeps doing the correct thing long after the person on the receiving end has stopped deserving it. Someday, if he asks, I'll tell him the truth about where he came from. Every ugly, complicated piece of it. He deserves the real version, not a softened one built to spare my own comfort. He's not old enough to ask yet. I have time to figure out how to say it right. Sheng Tang was released not long after, his sentence finally served. 4 years in prison had hollowed out whatever self-respect he'd once carried, but it hadn't taught him anything close to humility. If anything, it had cultivated something darker, something violent that simmered just beneath the surface now. When he walked through the prison gates, our gray-haired parents were waiting, exactly as they always had been. They hadn't reflected on his crimes at all. Instead, they'd quietly sold off the last scraps of family property back in their hometown, determined to keep supporting their favorite son no matter the cost. But the man who walked out wasn't the polite, straight-A student they remembered. He kicked the luggage bag out of his mother's hands, eyes cold and full of contempt. "This is all the money you brought? You two ate well out here for 4 years while I rot in that place, and now you're sticking me in some dump of a rental?" "Xiaotang," my mother said, flinching, "your father and I don't have much left. It all went to your treatment, and Xiaolin's, and the bribes. Let's just settle in first. I'll find work as a nanny. Your father can pick up construction work. We'll manage." Sheng Tun only scoffed, looking at his parents' stooped backs without a trace of gratitude. Only entitlement. He'd learned inside those walls to bully the weak and fear the strong, and now the easiest, softest targets left in his world were the two people who'd sacrificed everything for him. "Just hurry up," he snapped. "And don't you dare mention Shang Luan's name in front of me. Once I'm back on my feet, I'll make him pay for everything he's cost me." My parents exchanged a glance and followed him inside without another word, still convinced they'd found someone worth leaning on. They had no idea the person they'd carried home with their own hands was a bottomless pit that would never, ever be filled. Not long after his release, Sheng Tang was diagnosed with a terminal illness. The pain only sharpened the cruelty already living inside him. He spent his days in bed, screaming at our parents the moment they returned from backbreaking labor, kicking at them over the smallest inconveniences. "Why is this medicine so bitter? Are you trying to poison me to save money? Get out there and earn more. I want meat. I want liquor." "Xiaotang," my mother whispers, exhausted, "I worked 12 hours today. There's nothing left." "Don't even bring up your brother," he snarls. "He blocked us ages ago." They tried the number anyway, once, from a borrowed phone. It rang exactly one time before the block caught it. I know because Wan checked the log the next morning, out of habit, the way she checks everything now. I told her not to worry about it. Some numbers don't need answering twice to make the point clear. This was the life they'd chosen for themselves. A fate entirely their own making, worlds away from the quiet, steady happiness I now had waiting for me at home. My mother called me twice during those final months, both times late at night, both times asking for nothing specific, just a voice, I think, someone to sit on the other end of a silence with her while her favorite son screamed at her from the next room. I let both calls run their course without hanging up. I didn't say much. I didn't need to. There's a particular kind of mercy in just staying on the line with someone, even when you've stopped believing anything they say will change. That's the closest thing to forgiveness I ever managed to give her. Not absolution. Just presence, rationed carefully, on my own terms, for as long as I could stand to give it. I heard, secondhand, that near the end he asked our mother to call me. Just once. She never did, not out of spite, this time, but because she already knew what I'd say, and some small, self-protective part of her didn't want to hear it confirmed out loud. She was right not to call. I would have said the same thing I'd been saying for years. That road, he walked alone. He built every mile of it himself, and I wasn't going to hand him a shortcut on the very last stretch just because the ending had gotten inconvenient for him. I'm not going to pretend that's a comfortable thing to admit into a microphone. It isn't. There's a version of me, a smaller, younger, cell-block version, who still flinches at how easy that sentence was to say. But here's the thing nobody explains to you about a debt that never gets acknowledged: eventually, keeping the account open costs you more than closing it does. I closed it. I don't regret closing it. I regret, some nights, that it was ever a debt in the first place instead of just love, freely given, the way it's supposed to work between brothers. System, hostile intent target, Sheng Tun, self-inflicted. The last notification I ever got about him. Fitting, honestly. He spent his whole life outsourcing consequences to other people. In the end, there was nobody left to hand them off to. My own life, in contrast, had settled into something I never thought I'd get to feel again. Peace. I handed daily operations of my business over to a professional management team, freeing up more time for what actually mattered. Wan and I registered our marriage on a bright, breezy afternoon, nothing extravagant, just the two of us and a quiet certainty that this, finally, was real. One afternoon, Nyener came sprinting into the living room waving a test paper over his head, absolutely beaming. "Daddy! Mommy Wan. Look, I got first place." Wan wiped the sweat from his forehead, glancing at me with a soft, hopeful smile. "Brother Shang, let's take him to the beach tomorrow. He's earned a little fun." I lifted him into my arms, pride swelling somewhere deep in my chest. Whatever you two want. As long as we're together, anywhere's good enough for me. Every so often, news of my old family still reached me through my lawyer. Shang Tung, wailing in agony from his illness. My parents, worn thin from years of relentless labor and regret. I felt nothing when I heard it. Not satisfaction. Not sympathy. Just distance, the kind that comes from finally closing a door you spent your whole life trying to keep open. System, status, final. Ex-convict husband. Father. Untouchable. Sunlight spilled across the villa lawn. Yenner's laughter rang out clear and bright across the yard. I held Su Wanwan's hand, felt the familiar warmth settle into my palm, and understood something I hadn't fully grasped 3 years ago, standing outside my old front door with my hand frozen in the air. Only people who've truly lived through darkness know how to cherish the light when it finally arrives. Let me leave you with the thing I actually think about, most nights, more than the villas or the courtroom or any of the numbers that used to flash behind my eyes like a scoreboard nobody else could see. It's the version of me standing on that walkway 3 years ago, hand raised, still hoping. Still willing to knock on a door that had already decided to shut him out. I don't hate that version of myself. I used to. For a long time I thought the softness in him was the mistake, the thing that let all of this happen in the first place, the vulnerability that got exploited by people who should have protected it instead. I don't think that anymore. He wasn't weak. He was just early. He hadn't learned yet that love without reciprocity isn't loyalty, it's just a debt you keep extending to people who never intended to repay it. Everyone extending a debt like that right now, reading this, listening to this, I'm not telling you to go build 10 villas and burn your family's world down out of spite. That's not the lesson, and honestly, most of the satisfaction in that kind of collection wears off faster than you'd think. The lesson is smaller than that, and it's the only piece of this whole story I actually want you to carry with you when you close this out. The people who are supposed to love you unconditionally sometimes don't. And the moment you finally stop waiting for them to start, is usually the exact same moment your actual life quietly begins. This life was still long. And our happiness, real, earned, untouchable, had only just begun. If you made it this far, you already know how rare that kind of ending actually is. Most people never get the courtroom moment, the reporter with the shocked face, the neat, satisfying line where the truth finally outruns the lie. Most people just have to walk away quietly and build something new out of whatever's left standing. That's what this really was, underneath all the numbers and the brackets and the villas. Not vindication. Just a man, finally allowed to stop proving himself to people who were never going to see him clearly no matter what he handed them. That's the version of this story worth remembering. Not the extraction speed. Not the villas. Just a door that finally, permanently, stayed shut on the people who never deserved to walk through it in the first place, and a new one, right beside it, that stayed open for exactly the people who did.